Inside Obstacle News. Welcome to Inside Obstacle News. I'm your host, Dirty Getty, and this evening on the show I have Amelia Boone, winner of 2012 World's Toughest Mudder, also runner-up in 2011. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the news that came out Friday morning after the big announcement from Reebok and Spartan on Thursday, is that Hobie Call is now sponsored by Reebok. We're not sure what's going to come out of this big sponsorship, but it sounds great. I think they're going to have Hobie helping to design new shoes for obstacle racing, as well as apparel and other training gear. So let's hear from Amelia Boone about her story going from regular lawyer in Chicago to world's toughest mudder. All right, I want to welcome to the show Amelia Boone, winner of World's Toughest Mudder 2012, and also you were runner-up in 2011, right?
Correct.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about yourself and where you're living, where you're from, and how you got started in obstacle racing.
Well, let's see. I'm currently living in Chicago, Illinois. I've been here for about 2.5 years or so. But I'm originally from the Northwest, Pacific Northwest. I was born and raised in Portland. Lived in Seattle for a while. So I'm an attorney here. I spent a lot of time in the office, and I actually got my start in obstacle racing with coworkers. Actually, one of my coworkers found a tough mudder and was like, "Hey, this looks like fun." And so we went as a group of us coworkers, and they all thought it was fun and that hey, it would be cool to maybe do it again sometime. But I was immediately just kind of enthralled with it, and then went from there and just started doing more and more races.
So were you always this athletic, or did you just get into it?
I played sports growing up. I was a very athletic kid. I played softball, soccer, basketball year round. I was always traveling from practice to practice and traveling with teams. But after high school, I just decided to kind of focus on academics. In college, I was nowhere good enough to play D1 somewhere. So I kept up, training and running after that. But a part of me really kind of missed the competitiveness of sports. And I think that's really kind of what led me back into trying to do obstacle racing competitively. It's something. It was, I ran road races, but they were a bit too boring for my taste. So.
And where did you go to college and law school?
I was at Washington University in St. Louis for undergrad, and then I was in law school at University of Washington in Seattle. Okay. So I confused people with the moving back and forth between two Washingtons. But
so you were talking a little bit about your first toughest mudder or your first tough mudder, and then so how did that translate into the 2011 tough mudder or world's toughest mudder?
Well, I ran it and I had a blast, and I submitted my time, and I found out I qualified for the world's toughest mudder, which, to be honest, I think at that point anybody who submitted a time probably qualified for it because it was new. And I remember I think I had a week to register with a discount, and I don't really know what possessed me to go ahead and do it, because I never even really pulled an all-nighter. I don't know what I thought I could do by running for 24 hours, but I was like, why not? Give it a shot. So I remember signing up and then immediately regretting it and being like, well, if I can't do it, if I don't want to do it, I'm only out a couple $100 and that's fine. But it was fun, because then I started meeting people on the internet, connecting with other people who were doing it, and we kind of formed a group and got to know each other, and then went out and ran this race that nobody had any idea what it was going to be like, and I think people just were decimated by it. So.
And what kind of training did you do that first year?
I started doing a lot of long runs, and I was actually injured. I was in a boot with a stress fracture for like 2 months leading up to it. So I got out of the boot about a month before World's Toughest in 2011, and so I was swimming a lot. I was swimming a lot and biking, but I never really did anything crazy or out of the ordinary. You know, I trained maybe for like an hour to maybe like 2 hours max on the weekends. Sometimes, like, you know, I'd do a longer session on the weekend, and then I would, you know, do 6 days a week or so, but nothing extreme.
Okay, so 2011, nobody really knew what to expect. Like, were people wearing wetsuits? Like, I heard it was a lot colder that year than this year. What was that experience?
Well, so it was interesting because there was this entire, people kind of broke into this wetsuit and non-wetsuit camp leading up to it. A lot of people, like, I had never been in a wetsuit. You know, I didn't do tries. I didn't do anything like that. I only swam because it was the only thing I could do when I had a stress fracture. So I didn't really know. People were saying, like, you don't want to be in a wetsuit for 24 hours because that's bad for you. You're going to get dehydrated. You're going to overheat. So, you know, I think some people brought them, some people didn't. I was smart. I think in retrospect, I was smart or just lucky in that I brought one. And I brought a long one, then I also brought a neoprene hood. And didn't wear it for the first lap, as I don't think anybody did. And as soon as we got in that water, like, people dropped out after one lap because of, like, hypothermia. I mean, it was definitely colder. It dropped down in the teens at night that year, and I remember wading through the water and breaking ice as we were walking through some of, like, 1 mile. No, seriously, like, we had to break the ice, and it was
oh man,
it was bad. And I remember just, like, it definitely, the conditions were really, really bad. And I don't think Tough Mudder headquarters was prepared for how bad it was going to be either. Perhaps maybe why they moved it up by a month this year.
yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of the criticism people talked about, like, oh, well, you know, if you had the right gear, you were fine, and this didn't really test your athletic abilities. It tested, like, how good your gear was. But, you know, you look at Junyong, and, like, he was, like, fashioning wetsuits out of, like, scraps that other people had left behind, you know, like, this, there was still a lot of athletic ability involved. You know, it wasn't the gear. So luckily things were a bit warmer this year, though it still got pretty cold. So
now, do you remember afterwards, like, was there any big meal that you really wanted to eat to refuel, or that your body was just craving?
So it's funny, I actually couldn't eat anything. Like, I was just sick to my stomach. And that year we had rented a house down the Jersey Shore. There were about, like, 15 or 16 of us that rented a house. And we drove back down there, and people went to go get, like, tacos for us or something. And I couldn't. I sat in the shower for about an hour. Like, I literally sat down in the shower for about an hour. And I couldn't get anything down. I ended up, like, drinking a few beers and, like, eating some crackers, and that was, like, the extent of it. So, but that's pretty par for the course for me after races. So my appetite doesn't come back for a few days, and then I just eat everything in sight. This past year, after this most recent, there's this frozen yogurt store in New Jersey called Yogo, and we don't have it here in the Midwest. And all I wanted was, like, a huge thing of frozen yogurt. That's what I ate after World Toughest. After winning $15,000, I was like, frozen yogurt.
How much frozen yogurt can $15,000 buy?
I was like, this is sad.
So fast forward a little bit to, like, 2012. Did you start planning immediately and thinking, oh, I can win this next year, or was it just, like, still way up in the air?
To be honest, I had no desire to go back and do it. I think it was like a little bit of PTSD. I remember when they announced the date and they reopened registration, and I just remember, like, because it was the coldest I'd ever been in my life. It was the most miserable I'd ever been in my life. And I was doing other races, and I was finding other things that I liked. And so I was like, I just don't know if I want to put myself through that again. There were points where I thought like my body was just going to fail. So it took me a while to warm up to the idea, and I was actually originally going to run as a team with 3 guys.
Okay.
And
I
then
remember you
Todd
were
said
saying
that,
that on Matt's show.
yeah,
And
and then Todd Sedlak shattered his leg, which thanks Todd.
yeah.
On my end, at least. But
Have you seen that calendar with the guys in it? Todd's
yeah,
picture is especially noteworthy.
of course, yes. I expected his to be above and beyond.
So you mentioned you did a couple of other races in 2012. What other types of things did you do?
So I had signed up for the winter and the summer death race before I even did World's Toughest Mudder. So like a couple weeks before, and I was like, wow, I really hope this is the right decision. So, but I ran both of those. I finished both of those, and I mean, the death race is entirely different than an obstacle. It's not an obstacle race, but it's such a great group of people, and such like it's fairly intimate, and it's Joe and Andy's show, so it's fun to go up and run around in the woods for a few days every once in a while during the year, and then and I ran other obstacle races, just regular Spartan races, a few Tough Mudders, things like that.
Now, how do you place usually in the Spartan races?
So to be honest, I've only run 2 Spartan races. I started with the death race. My first Spartan
Isn't that
race.
supposed to be like after?
Yeah, I've done the opposite. I started with the death race, and then I worked my way down. I ran the Ultra Beast. I finished second in the Ultra Beast, and then I ran the Midwest Superstar Spartan, and I won that. And then I was supposed to run the Texas Beast, but I was still too injured for World's Toughest Mudder.
Yeah.
So I needed a few weeks to recover. But
And so how did you train differently for 2012?
Well, I started CrossFit.
Okay.
And one of my big weaknesses in 2011 was definitely my upper body strength. I had a really hard time with the monkey bars, with the rings, with getting myself over walls. It's just the upper body strength wasn't there. So I started CrossFit about 9 months ago. And to be honest, I didn't actually... I think I trained endurance-wise. I trained less for World's Toughest Mudder than I did the year before. Like, I stopped running, really, just because I kept injuring myself when I was running. But I knew that I could make it. Like, from doing the death race, from doing the Ultra Beast, like, I knew that I could run, distances and be fine. So I focused more on strength, and definitely things were easier this time around. I never had a problem with the walls, like the rings, the monkey bars. So the obstacles were much easier this time around.
Had you heard of Deanna Blake or any of the other people that were going to be, kind of at your heels?
No, I guess I heard about Juliana like a week or so before, and I said I love her and she's fantastic, and so it would have been nice to have her back out there before. I didn't know Deanna at all. All I knew is that people kept telling me during the race, they're like, there's this Australian woman like 10 minutes behind you, and I'm like, it was actually Matt Davis who figured out, got some info on her, and figured out, because obviously we all think that we all know each other, but like we forget that these are international events and that there are people coming from all over the world, and every year it's just going to get tougher and tougher. So I had known a few other women that were going to be there that I knew were going to be contenders, but I guess I just kept running. When people kept telling me they were right behind me, I just kept running.
So how do you keep going, and like especially in the middle of the night when you're probably tired? And I mean, right. I pulled many all-nighters in college, so
right.
So I know how that feels, but I'm also not freezing cold and walking through mud. So how did
right.
you do that?
Well, it's funny because I think what I did right this year as opposed to last year is that I kept moving. I think what hurts you in these races is if you stop and take a break and you sit down, and because the hardest thing is getting back out there. So the longest that I ever rested was maybe 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. And aside from that, I was like grabbing food and just getting back on my way. You kind of start occupying yourself in your own ways in your mind. Like what I would do is I would route out the course, and I would start, since you run it over and over again, I'd be like, okay, so I'm here. The next obstacle is X. Do I need to take off my gloves? Do I need to put on my gloves? I made it very routine in that in the tunnels, I would always go through the same tunnel. I would always go across the same monkey bars, across the same rings, just little kind of like things to keep yourself sane, to keep your mind thinking, but not too much. And besides that, I think you're just on autopilot. But I sang to myself. I had songs running through my head. And to be honest, I stopped, and I didn't really stop, but like when I was like shuffling by other people or people were coming by me, I chatted with people, and that's the one thing that keeps you sane, is to talk to everybody else out there.
Now, are you an actual singer? Like, will you go out and do karaoke, or were you just like doing it for yourself?
No, I actually I was trained classically growing up, and then I sang a cappella in college, which was fantastic. So I've lost my touch, but I still sing to myself.
Well, now that everybody knows, we're going to have to hear some songs in the future. I'm not going to make you sing right now, but next time I meet you...
Cocktails, maybe, but that's...
Yeah, cocktails and karaoke are always a good mix.
Right.
So at what point... were you always ahead, or were you, how close were people throughout the race?
I was always I took the lead from the very beginning. I never lost it. I think the closest somebody got to me was about 10 minutes. But that's the thing about being in the lead, is you never really know. It's a horrible feeling, let me tell you, because I've actually, really never been in the lead for anything except for one other race. I've never been known I was in the lead, and it's horrible. It's like somebody's chasing you the entire time. It's like that fear, you keep turning around your shoulder, turning and looking over your shoulder, thinking any minute somebody's gonna run by you. So it was very exhausting, actually.
Matt had tweeted Amelia's 5 minutes behind Pak, and I'm freaking out, checking my phone in church, feeling like a total heathen sinner going straight to hell. But at the same time, I was really excited. I couldn't believe just how close it was. Did you know it was that close?
So I didn't know about Pak until probably, I don't know, halfway through the final lap. I started out on the final lap. I remember heading back into the pit after finishing, my 8th lap, and then running by, literally grabbing a bottle of Ensure and running with it, just going, popping some Advil, I think, because I was in a lot of pain. And so I think because he had rested between that 8 and 9, I cut off a lot of time there. So I didn't realize how close I was until the COO, I think, came up alongside of me halfway through the course and starts running alongside of me, telling me this. And they're like, Pak's 5 minutes ahead, you can catch him, run faster. And I'm like, I can't run faster, I knew maybe 10, 15 minutes into the final lap that Deanna had called it quits. So I knew that I had won for women, which was fantastic. But now everybody wanted me to people kept being you're getting closer, you're getting closer. And I was at some point, I was I don't care, I just want to finish. Go
yeah.
So, but it's fun. It was exciting to be that close. And I think on the tire drag, the final tire drag. He was finishing as I was starting, and that was the first time that I'd seen him on the course, actually. So for the entire 24 hours. So
Wow, that is so cool. So what was it like just crossing that finish line? And were you like crying? Did you fall to your knees and pass out? Did you throw up? Like,
no, I I guess I was so I was really kind of dazed and out of it, to be completely honest. I was exhausted. But it was just a feeling of relief. It was just like, oh, thank God it's over. And I was like, get me to a warm shower. So I went and ran to like one of the showers and just like sat in there and tried to wash the mud off my face, because if you've seen pictures, like, it was just crusted. I was like, oh my God, why did somebody tell me to clean off my face before I
oh, it's worth it. It's worth it.
God, I guess so. But yeah, and then they took me in the medical tent and checked me out to make sure I was okay. And then like the award ceremony was like right away. So at that point, I was kind of still trying to comprehend all of it. Like, wow, I won this, and this is over and it's done. And then I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to drive back to the airport right now? So,
Did you have you like the prior year? You said you had a big group of people. Was there many people like with you this time around, or you literally had to drive yourself to the airport?
So I was lucky. I didn't have any family or friends come in, just because it's a really crappy race to watch as a spectator.
Yeah.
Because it's 24 hours long, and I live far away. But I was lucky and fortunate that there were a couple guys that helped me out afterwards, helped me pack up my stuff, and drove my car for me, back to the airport, so I didn't have to drive, because I probably could have driven, but
Yeah, no, not
to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
So they were lifesavers for that. There's some really good people out there.
So what about the $15,000? Like, do you get a little check? Because we all saw the big one, but it's not like Happy Gilmore where you put it in the back of your car and take it to the bank.
No, it's actually still sitting. The big one's sitting in my living room. After I asked if they could mail it to me, which, by the way, they did a fantastic packaging job, I realized, I'm like, now what do I do with this? Now it's in my living room, and it's still sitting there. No, they sent me a regular size check that I could, deposit, and so it was, it's nice. It's going towards paying off law school loans, so people are like, what are you doing with your money? And I'm like, paying off loans and putting it in savings. Like, I went and got a massage. That was like the extent of it. And it's obviously, if you think about how much money I've spent on races and flying races and stuff like that, it's a nice kind of evening out thing. So
Yeah. Being that you've won World's Toughest Mudder and you've placed very well in some of the Spartan races, do you see yourself racing more or racing more professionally now that, Reebok is on board and there's more money coming in?
It's funny, because I think a part of me is like, well, maybe I should just retire and go out on top. I'm going to keep running as long as it's fun for me. I am a professional, and my full-time commitment is to my job as an attorney. So as time allows, I will go and race. So a lot of these races, like, it's really last minute for me. All my flights I get as refundable. Thank you, Southwest. So if I have to bow out, I have to bow out. So, money has never really been a motivation for me. It's nice, but at the same time, I do this just because it's fun, and I'm going to try and get to as many as possible, and keep doing it, and as long as I have fun doing it. And I think the Reebok partnership should be fantastic, so we'll see what comes out of that, but for the time being, I hope still that is, it's still kind of, I think Joe said in his letter that they'll retain the soul of obstacle racing, which I'm sure that they will. So
I just want to ask you real quickly about that, because you're into CrossFit and you probably run
Yeah.
into like heavy duty CrossFitters there in Chicago. Um, how do they feel about the whole Reebok sponsorship, and how do they feel about like Reebok's relationship to CrossFit, and how do you think that translates to the obstacle racing?
Yeah, I think Reebok has done. I think Reebok sponsoring CrossFit has done fantastic things for the sport of fitness. In terms of getting it out there and having it be on TV and having kind of legitimizing it as a sport. There's always going to be people who have been CrossFitting since from their garages from the very beginning, before Reebok, that are going to kind of be anti-establishment and say, they've lost the heart and soul of CrossFit and blah blah blah. And I came into CrossFit after Reebok, so I guess I can't really comment on that. But nobody can deny that definitely that they have definitely legitimized the sport and made it appeal to a much broader audience. So I can see the same thing happening for obstacle racing.
Moving forward for yourself in 2013, what kind of races do you have coming up soon, and what's the rest of your year look like?
So last minute, as usual, I decided to fly out to the Super Spartan this weekend in Southern California, as long as work allows. So that decision will probably be made late Thursday night. And then the week after, I'll be up at the Winter Death Race back in Pittsfield. So I do love the death races. And then on board, I have a host of Spartan races and running a few Tough Mudders. And I don't know, my schedule always changes. So as new and interesting things come up, I was hoping to be able to make it down to Nicaragua for the Fuego y Agua. More and more with work, it's really hard for me to take off for a week with no cell phone service whatsoever, especially right now and where I am. So unfortunately, probably that won't happen, but it's okay. Hopefully there'll be other opportunities.
And do you see yourself doing World's Toughest Mudder this year?
Yeah, I
Okay.
do. I think I hope they change up the format a little bit. I mean, part of me is like, 3 years in a row in New Jersey is rough. No, no, I'm not scared of it anymore like I was. I don't really think I have the PTSD coming off of it again. So I see myself out there next year, and go out there and and give it all my all. So, but it's every year more and more, and especially as money starts coming in these things, more like really good professional athletes are going to start competing. So we'll see the sport evolve, definitely.
Cool. Well, we're looking forward to seeing what you do. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks to Amelia Boone for being on the show. That was the winner of World's Toughest Mudder 2012. What an amazing story that she has. So coming up this week, we have a few races going on. The Shell Hill Adventure Complex in Vermont's going to be having their polar bear obstacle race. There's also the Winter Death Race coming up in a few weeks, and Spartan SoCal. A couple of other mudders around the world going on, and we hope to hear from those as well. So, in the meantime, you gotta ask yourself, do you feel muddy, punk? Well, do you? Inside Obstacle News.